After video games transitioned from the arcade to the living room in the 1980s, they became a huge part of our lives. As this new form of entertainment began to catch on, Nintendo and Sega fought to come out on top with players, sparking the first era of console wars. Later, the video game market fractured even further with the introduction of handheld systems and new consoles like the PlayStation and Xbox. Strap on those nostalgia goggles and get ready to take a trip down memory lane. These are the most popular video games from the year you were born, according to just how popular they remain today based on IMDb's voter-based video game charts. 1984 Excitebike. In 1984, Nintendo's Excitebike for the NES let gamers experience the thrill of motocross racing right from their couch. While the tight controls make Excitebike a white-knuckle ride at times, the addictive gameplay and advanced mechanics made it an instant classic. Its influence is obvious in modern motocross games like the MX vs. ATV series, but Excitebike's legacy isn't limited to just racing games. Excitebike also happened to be one of the first console games to feature a design mode, allowing you to create your own tracks. So if you've ever made a custom map in Doom or designed the perfect level in Super Mario Maker, you might very well have Excitebike to thank. 1985 Super Mario Bros. Although Mario had previously appeared in the arcade games Donkey Kong and Mario Bros., this powerful little plumber became famous around the world after Nintendo gave him his own NES game. Developed by Shigeru Miyamoto as a launch title for the Japanese Famicom system, the side-scroller platformer Super Mario Bros. Was released in 1985, launching one of the most popular video game franchises of all time.
Mario!
In the United States, Super Mario Bros. Was bundled with the newly launched Nintendo Entertainment System, and the extremely popular console and game helped revive the flagging video game industry after the market crash of 1983, though this probably helped Nintendo out a lot too.
Do the Marios!
1986, The Legend of Zelda.
It's the Legend of Zelda and it's really rad. Those creatures from Ganon are pretty bad. Octoroks, Tektites, Levers too. But with your help, our hero pulls through.
In 1986, Nintendo followed up the massive success of Super Mario Bros. With yet another video game blockbuster, The Legend of Zelda. This non-linear fantasy adventure became an instant success in Japan on the new Famicom disk system, and the shiny gold cartridge proved to be just as popular in Europe and North America on the NES. Nintendo hired composer Koji Kondo to design the music and sounds for both Zelda and Mario, and his iconic scores inspired other developers to make music a more integral part of the gameplay experience. Additionally, The Legend of Zelda had a new feature that forever changed the way we play video games. It was the first home console cartridge to include an internal battery, which allowed players to actually save their progress. 1987, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! After earning widespread praise for their arcade games Punch-Out and Super Punch-Out, Nintendo made the smart move to port their boxing franchise to the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. For this new version, Nintendo blended elements from both arcade titles and added several features to help set the game apart from its predecessors, like animated cutscenes, a password-backed saving system, and a memorable soundtrack that got players pumped. The new game also got some new characters too, including then up-and-coming professional boxer Mike Tyson. Nintendo had reportedly given Tyson $50,000 for a 3-year contract to use his name and likeness, which paid off when Tyson won the WBC Heavyweight Championship in late 1986, and giving him video game immortality.
You want to live for eternity? Allow me to induce my fangs in your veins.
1988, Super Mario Bros. 3. Nintendo continued their hot streak in 1988 with the release of Super Mario Bros. 3, which remained true to Mario's roots while adding several new innovations to Mario's gameplay. The game introduced several new power-up items like the Super Leaf and Frog Suit, and added new features like giant airship battles and card games to the mix. These features and the new overworld map introduced in Super Mario Bros. 3 later became mainstays of the franchise. 1989, Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse. Nintendo's streak of classics continues with the third entry in Konami's legendary Castlevania series. On one hand, Castlevania 3: Dracula's Curse skipped the RPG elements of its predecessor in favor of the side-scrolling platforming of the original. On the other, Castlevania 3 featured branching paths, which affected the levels the player fought through as well as which endings he or she might achieve. In addition, this is the game that introduced playable side characters to the franchise, opening up the potential for different gameplay gameplay styles. Dracula's Curse was an important game for one of the era's most important franchises, as well as the standout release of 1989. 1990, Super Mario World. Mario may have taken a year off to make room for vampires and popular Russian puzzle games, but he made a comeback in 1990 when Nintendo released Super Mario World as a launch title for the Super Famicom, and later in the US for the new 16-bit Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Super Mario World is here. It's one of the new generation of Nintendo games. It comes only with Super Nintendo, and it's like nothing you've ever faced.
The platformer closely resembled earlier Mario games, but it also added several new features, characters, and design elements. Most importantly, though, Super Mario World introduced players to the dinosaur Yoshi, who serves as a rideable companion. Yoshi's unique skills let him eat some of Mario's enemies, stomp on others, and use colored Koopa shells to gain additional abilities. Super Mario World proved to be extremely popular, with many considering it to be one of the best video games of all time. 1991, The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. Mario was upstaged again in 1991, when Nintendo released The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past for the Super Famicom, and later in 1992 for the SNES.
It's the game that's already a legend. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past, only on the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
This fantasy action-adventure is the third installment in the wildly popular Zelda series. It abandoned these side-scroller elements seen in 1987's Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, taking a top-down perspective like the original Legend of Zelda. Nintendo also added several new elements to the gameplay, like the Master Sword and parallel worlds, which went on to become hallmarks of the franchise. The game blended RPG elements with real-time fighting and non-linear exploration, which proved to be an extremely popular combination with gamers. 1992, Lunar: The Silver Star. In the early 90s, the writing was on the wall for the venerable old cartridge. There was literally a shiny new object on the way: the CD. Sega jumped on board this new medium early by developing the Sega CD add-on for their Genesis console.
You still don't have a Sega CD? What are you waiting for, Nintendo to make one?
CD data compression allowed for much bigger and high-quality games. An early standout of this new era was Lunar: The Silver Star, which included groundbreaking features such as voice acting and full-motion video.
You're late again. Did Ramus ever find you? You know, he seemed really anxious to track you down.
Developer Game Arts parlayed that technical capacity into artistic gold by filling the game with rich art and a compelling story, brought to life by brilliant animations and deeply drawn characters. Lunar was a precursor to the JRPG boom that would arrive later in the 90s, and it remains a beloved classic. 1993, Super Mario All-Stars. Although Sega took the top honors in 1992, Nintendo bounced back in 1993 with the SNES compilation Super Mario All-Stars, which features remakes of all three original Super Mario Bros. Games, as well as The Lost Levels, a Japan-only Famicom game.
You're gonna live, breathe, eat, sleep Mario in Super Mario All-Stars, 4 complete Mario games, including the never-seen Lost Levels.
Super Mario All-Stars enhances the original Mario games for the 16-bit SNES with 256 color graphics and an updated soundtrack. Super Mario All-Stars also added the ability to save your progress, which let players take their time on playthroughs and switch between games whenever they wanted. 1994, Super Metroid. For years after its release, gamers had been clamoring for a follow-up to 1986's Metroid. They finally got their wish in 1994, when Nintendo released Super Metroid for the 16-bit SNES.
He's a big boy. He can handle it. Well, let's see how he did. Ship it! Super Metroid, only on the Super NES.
Super Metroid introduced automatic mapping and an inventory system. Samus and her power suit got an upgrade too, including the grapple beam and the ability to shoot in any direction. The beloved sci-fi platformer took lead producer Yoshio Sakamoto and his team over 2 years to make, but it was definitely worth the wait. With crisp graphics, engaging level design, and an edgy and atmospheric soundtrack, Super Metroid may just be the best action-adventure game of all time. In 1995, Chrono Trigger. The most popular game from 1995 is Chrono Trigger, a fantasy RPG developed by Square for the SNES. Square's Chrono Trigger design team included several prominent game creators from Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy, and even Dragon Ball manga artist Akira Toriyama. With such an impressive pedigree, gamers had high expectations, and Chrono Trigger delivered. Set in a world where all eras of history exist simultaneously, players travel through time to complete their quest while altering both the the future and the past. The engaging battle system also introduces a cooperative aspect that allows players to coordinate attacks. These revolutionary new innovations from Chrono Trigger sent a shockwave through the gaming world back in 1995. Paired with a memorable story, gorgeous graphics, and a sweeping soundtrack, Chrono Trigger earned its place as one of the best RPGs of all time. 1996, Super Mario 64.
Yo, listen up!
We will not live in a two-dimensional world.
We won't go in one direction or zig where we can zag.
In 1996, Mario once again returned to the forefront of video gaming with Super Mario 64. Needless to say, this was Mario as we'd never seen him before, in 3D.
Move an incredible 360 degrees as you embark on Mario's greatest adventure.
In the game, Mario uses magical portals to travel to other worlds and collect the power stars he needs to set Princess Peach free and defeat Bowser. While the plot was fairly typical of a Mario title, the gameplay was anything but. Super Mario 64 features a go-anywhere style of 3D exploration, and Mario's regular arsenal of moves expanded vastly to include wall jumping, ground pounding, and even sneaking around enemies. These changes and the 360-degree control provided by the N64's analog stick gave players an unprecedented amount of freedom, revolutionizing the platform game genre forever. 1997, Final Fantasy VII. Powerhouse game developer Square took the crown again in 1997 with Final Fantasy VII. After Nintendo 64 couldn't handle what Square had in mind for the now legendary RPG, the company transitioned to the CD-based PlayStation, which let the design team really go wild, giving FF7 a cinematic style that would come to define the franchise. Those upgrades weren't cheap, though. Square CEO Tomoyuki Takechi estimates they spent $40 million on development alone and another $40 million on marketing. Final Fantasy VII raised the bar and redefined the genre with its in-depth story and graphics. Not only did FF7 almost single-handedly popularize the PlayStation and Japanese-style RPGs in the West, it also contains one of the most shocking plot twists in video game history, one that gamers are still talking about today. 1998, Metal Gear Solid. Sony came out on top again in 1998 with the help of Konami and their stealth action-adventure game Metal Gear Solid. Advertised as a game chock full of tactical espionage action, MGS follows the story of Solid Snake, a soldier tasked with infiltrating a terrorist base and stopping the bad guys before they can launch a nuclear strike.
Is this the first time you ever pointed a gun at a person? Your hands are shaking.
The realistic gameplay and exciting plot of Metal Gear Solid were further enhanced by the PlayStation's then revolutionary hardware capabilities. The intense action and unconventional gameplay helped popularize the stealth genre, spawning numerous sequels and influencing a host of later stealth franchises like Hitman and Deus Ex. 1999, Shenmue. After Sega made a series of major business mistakes in the 90s, the company made one last attempt to get back in the game, releasing the Dreamcast system. In 1999, Sega pulled out all the stops, spending at least $47 million to develop and market their new action-adventure Dreamcast game, Shenmue. The epic 4-disc game combined martial arts elements with a dazzling detailed open world that allowed players to explore more than any console game had ever allowed before. Players could chat up hundreds of unique characters and interact with nearly everything in the environment, as they guided Ryo Hazuki on his quest to find his father's murderer. Shenmue also featured a day-night cycle and weather system, making for an unprecedented amount of realism in the game's immersive world. 2000, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. How do you follow up Ocarina of Time, one of the best-loved entries in the unparalleled Legend of Zelda series? It's not easy. But then again, this is Shigeru Miyamoto we're talking about. He and his team once again knocked it out of the park with their follow-up, The Legend of Zelda: Majora's Mask. Weaving together the time-shifting elements of previous installments with a much grimmer plot, Majora's Mask is a more mature, yet still perfectly family-friendly addition to Nintendo's lineup. The Nintendo 64 was already getting a bit long in the tooth at this point, but games like Majora's Mask proved the system still had plenty of life in it. And the rest. The turn of the millennium marked the end of Sega's participation in the console wars and major changes in the industry as a whole. With the release of the PlayStation 2 and the Xbox, Sony and Microsoft rose to prominence. Smartphones got smarter and mobile gaming became widespread. Gamers were getting older, and their preferences changed largely to multi-platform games, especially open-world survival, adventure, and shooter franchises. According to IMDb's users, here's the list of the best console games from 2001 to 2017, which does not include any re-releases, mods, DLC, expansions, or mobile games. Thanks for watching. Click the SVG icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus, check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.